was going on, people were moving in, stewardship started happening. People wanted to protect their water courses. It was part of the fabric in Surrey that we had water courses. If you live in a neighborhood with a water course, you walk down to it frequently to see what's happening there. If there are fish coming up your water course, even more. You come up in the fall and you say, oh, the chum are coming up the coho. So people were very tied to the water courses. That's one of our old biologists. So obviously, through the spawning season, fish come up and they spawn and die. Because of this high awareness and stewardship involvement, the city became involved with a number of stewardship groups. SHARP was developed, our salmon habitat restoration program, to help the community in those endeavors. And then it grew into just more than just water courses. What about the rest of our habitat in the area? We have frogs, we have owls, and we have kids putting young fry into our water courses. It's become part of the city. Okay, we have water courses, people want to see the salmon there. So there's a very heightened awareness of stewardship. So what does that mean? That means people want us to protect the water courses. We want to protect the water courses from a servicing perspective, but people want to protect them from an environmental perspective. There's a social benefit to the water courses. A lot of this is covered through a sustainability charter and so on, which we'll talk to a little bit. Obviously, some of these stewardship goals can be in conflict with our drainage servicing goals. We're essentially using a natural system to drain our built environment. So in some cases, there are conflicts. But it's consistent with our natural drainage policy. In other words, we don't want to take water out of the creeks. We don't want to dry the creeks and pipe everything to the ocean directly. What came out of that is that we have to understand the natural processes of the streams. As part of the stewardship approach, there was a sustainability movement or smart development movement that started probably late 80s, mid 90s, that really started picking up speed. Multi-level sustainability objectives. Dave will talk to that in a little more detail. One of those objectives was natural drainage. At that time, we were looking at a one-off type of criteria. We knew that typically in forested lands, you can hold on to an inch of rain. If you could do that on a daily basis, you're probably going to mimic natural environments. In Surrey, we didn't really have a natural environment. The land was farmed, it was logged years ago. Some ditches and creeks were straightened, they were modified somewhat. So every one of our watersheds has slightly different criteria from a drainage perspective. They also have different geology in terms of infiltration rates and so on. We have many different watersheds that behave differently. So we wanted to look at a varied approach in Surrey as opposed to saying, that's the criteria, we'll use it for every watershed. So we went to this watershed-based performance targets. And this is a hot tub that fell down a ravine. That was a problem with that watershed. There was a lot of erosion due to upstream development. All right? So it wasn't specifically in this one. It's a watershed in North Surrey. This is a Fergus Creek catchment. But essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the watersheds individually, and we're saying, what are the issues with that watershed? In this one, this was Bear Creek, there was an erosion issue. We had to find a way to solve the erosion issue, whether it was excess volume in the water course, or maybe we were redirecting more water to a specific area in the water course. We had to solve those problems. So now we look at when we do integrated stormwater management plans, we look at the individual streams and we look at performance targets for those streams, using a number of tools. Again, Jim will be talking about that. The water balance model is a part of that. It's developing those tools. It's helping us develop those tools. Whether we do it through the water balance model, the web-based tool, or some of the other modeling tools that are out there. So when we're talking watershed-based approach, we need to understand the watershed, the streams, opportunities and constraints in the streams, and the vision. In other words, and that's part of the community outreach when we do integrated stormwater management plans. We want to know what people want their watersheds to look like. Okay? It's a community-driven process. We need to go beyond peak flow conveyance. Everybody understands that now. It's kind of run of the mill, but 10, 15 years ago, we were still dealing with peak flows. We've gone well beyond that. We're looking at the full hydrologic regime. We need to communicate the vision, and this is why everybody's here today. We've been doing these watershed plans, master drainage plans, but on the ground, not everyone understands what we're getting at, why we're doing it, how we're trying to get there. And I think that's a big part of the message we want to get through today, is how can we get that message out, and how can you help us get the message out. So we must have a process to implement the plans. So some of the projects that helped us get to where we are today, obviously the list of master drainage plans we developed. The first ones were very pipe-centric, right? How big does the pipe have to be here to drain this area? As we moved forward, then we started dealing more with the water courses until we got into this integrated stormwater management plan. It wasn't these fixed steps. It was a number of transitions. It was a very fluid motion until we got to this integrated approach to what we're doing. The lowland flood control strategy was important to us because it really triggered the idea that, okay, these 24-hour, 12-hour storms, they're not the issue for the floodplain. Floodplain, we're looking at 5-day storms. Okay, it triggered that concept that, okay, the statistical design storm may not address everything that we have to deal with on a system. East Clayton was a key. Now we'll talk about that. Highway 99 corridor plan, that's another one that was important. We're not going to talk about it today. That was a project where we had a downstream constraint, and we really challenged the people in the corridor to come up with some innovative concepts. Campbell Heights Industrial Land Use Plan, that's another one where we have an opportunity to do something beyond what we've done everywhere else because the soils are good for us, are good for that. South Newton NCP, another one. We had a traditional approach with ponds and so on. We've moved beyond that to something that's more sustainable in terms of watercourse health. And we have a number of stream-specific projects as opposed to site-specific projects. So we've moved from an arbitrary set of targets to more watershed-based targets. Now I'm saying we, it's we, because we do very few studies in-house. We do no studies in-house. We hire consultants to do them. So everything that you see here has come through the projects we've done with our consultants and our development community, either through capital projects or through development projects. So none of this is initiated by the city. It's through work with all of you. So it made sense for us to come back together and move forward to say, how are we doing? Where are we going with this on the ground? From my perspective, it's important because when the city developed the sustainability charter, they kept looking at the different departments. What are you doing? How are you doing this? And drainage kept coming up as one of those areas where, okay, we've been doing a lot. East Clayton sustainability, East Clayton sustainable drainage, Highway 99 sustainable drainage. So it kept coming up. So a lot of the work that we've done has been implemented or it included in the sustainability charter, which has become kind of the overarching document for the city now. So it's something important to keep in mind. And when we talk sustainability, this is what we're dealing with from a council perspective. This is what they want us to understand. And it makes sense. We've got natural water courses. From a drainage perspective, it makes sense. We've got natural water courses. We want to make sure they're there in perpetuity for the rest of the people coming behind us. So that's it. That's kind of my little summary of Surrey drainage history. It's general enough. I don't think we have any questions. Maybe you'll probably have more questions when we get into more details. Dave, we'll start with East Clayton, with Jim, and we'll have a little break for coffee.